to Bitcoin Live. Today in the show with me is Eric P. Rhodes, a tech punk as I called him, but he's also an amazing artist. We're going to talk about most of his art and also a new project that he's doing on Solana that will be at the end of the show. But first, welcome to Bitcoin Live, Eric.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. I was sort of browsing to all the work that you did, and
Yep.
that looks pretty impressive to me. I like it a lot. And if it's okay with you, let's first start with an introduction. Tell us a little bit about your background and how you came into crypto and NFTs.
Yeah, sure. So I actually found crypto art really accidentally. I was in Twitter. I was already sort of investing um, in Bitcoin and Chainlink and your typical cryptocurrency. And I literally just typed in crypto and art just to see what was happening in this world. And it opened up a whole. I jumped into this rabbit hole, and it opened up this whole new world to me, and I've never left. I've been here ever since. That was sometime in late 2018, but I didn't really start actively participating um, until mid 2019.
And what sort of attracted you about it? I mean, what kept you?
Yeah, well, really, it was this like intersection of art and technology. Um,
Do you have like a background in technology?
I do. So I spent a bunch of my career working in tech,
Ah,
doing customer experience, user experience, service design. I led programs at Twitter and I consulted at Google. Um, and then before that, I did a lot of website design and development in the book publishing industry and then digital marketing. So I've always been in sort of this like space where tech and culture, merge together.
and you also had like an artist background, both.
I, yeah, well, I do. I went to art school in 1996 at Rutgers. I studied there. Was supposed to get my BFA. I ended up never finishing it, but I was there for 2 years. And I've always been an artist my entire life. I didn't think I'd do like. I didn't think I'd. I didn't think that I'd make money from it. That just sort of came later in life, but it was just something I'm driven to do. I don't think about it. It's part of who I am. So like when people like when yeah, I have a background in art, but it just is, right? Like
Yeah,
I don't think about it. I've always done it.
yeah. Most artists just like creating stuff regardless, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So you got into crypto early. You got into NFTs early.
Yeah.
I saw you did a lot of amazing projects. Also some very funny ones. We're also going to talk about those. You know, potatoes. I had no idea, but you know, it's really cool.
About the people's potato, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, maybe let's start with that one. Can you tell us a little bit about that specific project?
Yeah, so the people's potato was 2020 and I was sort of experimenting with the idea of fungibility and and there was this concept like in the space that scarcity and rarity mattered. And what I really wanted to do was sort of push back on this concept. And so I minted 1 billion of these people's potatoes and sort of turned this fungible token into this pseudocurrency, essentially this non-fungible token into this pseudocurrency, essentially turning it into a fungible, token, which I thought was like, in my mind, it's it's sort of like just makes me smile and laugh when I think about it. Um,
So it was a non-fungible token.
it is a non-fungible fungible token or a fungible non-fungible token. Yeah, I think Pac experimented with something similar later, but I like to say that I was one of the first to sort of play with this idea. I mean, just
Oh, and why the potato?
it's a really great question. Um, oh, I have to think back.
There we go.
Shoot, I don't really remember. I was inspired by a conversation with it was Max Osiris and Zach from Super Rare. Were having this discussion about scarcity and rarity, and I sort of jumped in the middle of it, and I was, uh, I think Max had minted the rose potato or something similar, and I just decided to dive into the people's potato.
Yeah, it's really cool and very original. And I'm glad I came across it. And potatoes are of course also what people used to eat when they were very poor, like also in Ireland. So they're
Yeah,
very healthy actually,
they're what?
very nutritious.
Yeah, there's sort of like it was an on the fly concept, and then I started to like it's sort of interesting how historically it could play into the concept of event like my initial thought was mimetics, like how do I get people, how do I make this concept fun? But then I started to like build onto the idea and really think about what the potato means to the people. um the potato is the people, like started playing
Yeah.
with the language and the words. um and it's sort of interesting how it's so relevant culturally, and I was able to tap into something organically that I could then sort of just bring into the storytelling of the people's potato.
And did it catch on?
It did. There's a lot of I mean, I don't think people today, it sort of died out a little bit. I actually won an award because of the people's potato, so I think yes, it did catch on. There's been a lot of sort of homages and remixes of the potato. It's had its uh moment in the sun, so to speak, and it's sort of historically an important part of my growth in the space. Um, is part
I,
of something called did you read into the social liquidity mining?
no, no.
So social liquidity mining is this concept, this process that I like to say, well, I invented it, but basically it was um, sort of a reward for paying it forward. So there's a billion of them. They were cheap. They were 4 cents at the time to buy, so you could buy them in loads. And then the goal was you would share one with a friend who didn't already have the potato, and then at the end of every month, they would be rewarded with with the token Tater, dollar sign
Yeah, yeah. I
TATR.
did see that one, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was like this concept of paying it forward and rewarding collectors for sharing the art as opposed to buying it, which is what I think people do now. Is sort of this, okay, you've got the art, now you'll be rewarded this token. This was always social liquidity mining for me, was always rewarding sharing the art
Yeah,
freely with others to bring them into the space.
which makes a lot of sense. So it was sort of passing along the hot potato.
Yeah, yeah, planting it, right, in
Yeah,
somebody else's wallet and then rewarding them with a token. And at the time, you could buy art with the Tater token on Rarible and OpenSea. This was before they shut down the ability to add custom tokens.
the good times.
The good times, yeah. Well,
Yeah,
it's the space grew, which is great.
yeah.
Um, and for the better, I think. And I've grown as an artist because of all the things we've learned along the way.
And talking about other projects that caught on, you also did the unofficial CryptoPunks, which was like an homage to the original.
Yeah.
Uh, that was also pretty popular. Can you tell us a little bit about this project?
Yeah. So while the people's potato was intentional, the unofficial punks was completely unintentional. Um, so that image that you're showing there, that first one with the gray and the sort of the white VR goggles, was inspired by a lot of money. He had done his own custom punk, and I felt like I was priced out of the crypto punks, And so I really just thought to myself, well, since I'm priced out and I'm inspired by a lot of, because he did his, I was like, I'm going to do mine. And
Yeah.
I had already had this logo, so this is based on my old logo, of this sort of sci-fi guy in a suit with, you know, big goggles. And yeah, so I shared it, and it just sort of went and grew organically from there. People were really excited that we were even doing this, and it sort of, I think, gave other people permission to remix the CryptoPunks, and then this whole community of alt punks grew from that. Um, I like to say that you know, the unofficial punks were responsible for uh
The remixing.
yeah, well, yeah, the sort of derivative culture,
Yeah.
they the unofficial punks incited it. They
Yeah.
were launched in February of 21, before anybody knew what Bored Apes were, before anybody knew what penguins were. You know, it was sort of like there was this month between February and April where everything was CryptoPunk derivatives. And really what that told us was there was this market that was hot for other PFP style projects. And you know, it was sort of, I think, a really interesting temperature check of the times.
And did you also get some flack for it, or was it
Oh,
more
so much
positive?
flack. Yeah. So it was like I was called a money grabber, a grifter, a fraud. How
Wow.
dare, you know, DMs of how dare you? You're stealing from CryptoPunks. Um, and it's interesting that, you know, within 6 months to a year, the entire market, NFT PFP market, was essentially derivatives of CryptoPunks, um, and it's so accepted and welcome, and even the CryptoPunk community themselves, the punk holders, um, they bought into it. And you know, I think that it takes moments like that where people are challenging the status quo for us to move to a point where you know, remixing becomes an accepted practice.
And it's also weird, right? Because I mean, the originals were also sort of like a PFP, so it's not like, you know, they were true art. I hope not. I'm not insulting anybody, but
No, I mean,
yeah,
their art in their own way.
yeah, in their own way, sort of like
Yeah,
Andy Warhol. Yeah,
yeah, but
yeah,
even the CryptoPunks are remixes
yeah,
of their own original, you know, pixel project that people didn't really know about until, I think, almost recently. They were brought back into the spotlight. I forget the name of it, but you know, Matt and John, they've been experimenting with tech and art and building at Larva Labs for a long time. Really respectable, really respected creators.
yeah. And I think also, you know, with the Bitcoin ethos and sort of the you know, decentralization, I think
Mhm.
it's very anarchic, and you know, it's about sharing and giving. I mean, I understand that people also want to get paid, but you know, it's kind of curious that you would get so much flack because of it, right? Or
No,
at least,
it was
yeah,
expected. I mean, you got to remember. So that's 2021. You got to remember. For me, I was part of the trash art movement,
yeah,
um, and for us, we were getting flack for remixing long before you know, the punks. So for me, it was like crypto, like the unofficial punks are an extension of the trash art movement. For me, it
yeah.
is an extension of the ethos of decentralized art, um of remixing, of like, you don't get to tell us how to make art, you don't get to tell us what art is. You know,
It's
like
also,
I expect, like, not that I expected it. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Not that I expected, but when I got hit with it, I giggled and laughed because I already been through it the year before.
that's sort of part of the program for you.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
so why do people have so much trouble understanding trash art? Like, you know, what's the issue?
to the trash art today, or trash art
In
when?
general, right? I mean, like you said, you've been through it a
Yeah,
couple of times before, so there's something about trash art that sort of ticks people off.
yeah. So there's a little bit of gatekeeping. There's a little, like, back in the day, it was all about how trash art was devaluing the art that was on super rare at the time. So there's a little bit of gatekeeping, a little bit like territorialism. Um, like, don't ruin my good thing. And I think that people identify, like, it was such a small space. So you had, even before the Bored Apes came in and we were doing this Unofficial Punks and this alt punk thing, it was small space, and people's identity was tied to the CryptoPunks or tied to the art that they were collecting. Their investment portfolio of crypto art and of digital art was tied to whatever they were buying on super rare, and I think to them they saw it as something that was devaluing their investment. It was all about money.
True, true. Yeah, but when you sort of look at it from an art perspective, I think the trash art movement is closer to sort of the original art idea than, the non-trash art, so to speak.
I think so. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, I agree. But anyway, you also did a lot of other projects. One of the more, yeah, let me say, serious one is this one, which I really like personally. Um, your Gray series.
Yeah, Life is Gray. Yes.
And I think there's a lot to this, and it's also very personal. So maybe can you give a little bit of an introduction to this series, because there's a lot to it, I think.
Sure. So, Life is Gray is essentially an exploration into my own journey with mental health. Um, I've suffered from anxiety and depression for most of my life, and it wasn't until I was in my late 30s, after a pretty severe breakdown, that I got the help that I needed, both medicinal and therapeutic. And now I see things a little bit differently. And so a lot of what I'm doing in Life is Gray is re-exploring these really difficult ideas about how I saw life back when I was struggling. It's sort of like pulling myself out, and and in an out of body experience kind of way, exploring these themes. And the way that I express that in this artwork is through this idea of, like, there's this scene and AI is analyzing the scene. And so conceptually, it's a little bit like me today trying to analyze what I was feeling or what I was going through back then. Um,
And is it also a commentary on sort of the broader society, or is it really sort of strictly personal?
well, no, a lot of most of my work is layered. Um,
Yeah.
it is all of my work is a comment on the broader society. I think that I'm naturally drawn to doing that, but I do that through the lens of my own experience. Um, and so some
And,
Go ahead.
oh, go on. Yeah, go on.
I was gonna say some of it is sort of, a lot of my anxiety was social. It was about the way in which I felt like I was being perceived, right? So there is that context to the artwork.
Yeah, and it has technology in it. I mean, I think that's
Oh,
at
of
the
course.
central stage, and you have a technology background, as you explained. So, but you have like I think a very sort of interesting perspective on it, because I also see you highlight sort of the negative part of it. So, how do you see sort of the balance between your love for technology and also sort of this dark side, which I think you also highlight?
Yeah, so I think that it's easy to, right, we're try I was jumping in thoughts in my head here. We're attracted to things, and we remember things that in our lives and our memories tend to be anchored in negative deeply or negative and deeply and deep emotions. And so I think when you're trying to sort of make a commentary about society, it's best to highlight this negativity in the artwork because that will get people's attention. If we're just talking about, flowers and lollipops, that doesn't work for me. I don't think people remember that. I think it looks pretty. Nothing against flowers and lollipops kind of art. But I think when we want to sort of create art that sort of sticks to the rib of our culture, like sticks to the rib of our culture, and that we have to use deeper emotions. And some of it too, some of this is sort of exploring my own emotions. So one of the things I recently discovered was that while I'm really good at analyzing situations in front of me, I don't have a really good emotional vocabulary. And so most of my life, I've tried to express that through art as opposed to being able to verbalize it. And so that's kind of where a lot of my darker art comes from.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I like the sort of dramatic coloring or the contrast in the picture.
Yeah, that was very intentional. And then the other piece here is the imagery. A lot, I'd say 90% of the images I create are layered on layered on layered, AI to create these scenes. And I will take objects from other pieces and then build them into the scene. So it's a lot more like digital sculpture than it is sort of like digital painting.
And I believe you use Midjourney, right?
I use a bunch, but I use Midjourney, Photoshop, whatever else is available to me.
And can you explain, because most of them have like 3 sections to the side, it
Yeah.
sort of gives you this sort of film reel effect, which is very interesting.
Yeah, that's the AI analyzing the situation. So that's me. Imagine me as the AI, and I'm analyzing this scene that's happening in front of me that I'm trying to remember and making a commentary on. So I don't remember what there at the top left it'll say analysis in progress, and on the right there'll be like 2 elements in the scene that have been analyzed and categorized, and then
I
the
see.
third is being worked on.
Yeah, yeah.
So I imagine this sort of like I've always imagined this series as a screen, right? So here's the other piece too. Like I grew up. I didn't grow up, but my professional life was in website design and development, user experience, graphic design at one point. And so for me, the idea of like using the screen as a medium to create art was part of my thought process here. And you can see there look like there's navigable elements where you can go up and down, like there's arrows on the right here where it looks like you can click to go up and down. And that's intentionally not intentionally not a function, because I want people to be like, well, to think about what could be coming next in this scene, what could be analyzed, without having the scene actually doing it for them.
Yeah, and it's also interesting because, for example, this one is actually the picture that's hanging in the room. So it's sort of you're taking this sort of 3D space and exploring it from different angles at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Well,
it's really cool. I like it a lot.
this
And
one is the Mona Lisa,
yeah,
and the Mona Lisa has a gas mask. What was the so you'll have to forgive me, but I don't remember the names of all the pieces that I make. I know it's terrible. Let me pull this up.
yeah, it doesn't say the name, I think. But this is also, yeah, and maybe I'm sort of totally out of, uh, maybe I'm totally wrong, but also related to COVID, or is that sort of totally unconnected?
Oh, Okay, so this piece is called "The Evolution of Your Awareness Is My Burden?" Question mark. So it's a question, and really, it's looking at other people again. So this specific piece here is a reaction to people upset that Max Osiris. I don't know. He inspires me so much. I think Max, but um, he minted the Mona Lisa on Super Rare, and it sold for like 0.25 ETH. Now you have to remember the Mona Lisa um, is CCO. It is a it's oh, I can't think of the name now. But
right?
so anyway, it can be minted freely
Yeah.
and used freely without
Yeah.
without concern. And people were really upset. And sort of so this image here, this artwork is questioning um, people's awareness or lack thereof of what CCO actually meant. Because remember, there was this huge movement, especially with Moonbirds. People were like super excited about CCO, and I still contend most people have no fucking clue. Excuse my language, but no clue what CCO actually means.
That was the Creative Commons, right? Or
Yeah, it essentially means that the art is in the public now.
yeah.
It's public domain art.
It's like 90 years,
Anybody can use
60
it.
years.
Say that again.
Like 90 years or 60 years. What
It
is it? Or something
depends.
like that.
It depends. I think jurisdictionally, it depends on the jurisdiction. In the U.S., I think it's 75 years or 90 years past the death of the original creator, or something silly like that.
Yeah, Mickey Mouse came free. What was it? Like
He
a
did.
month ago. Yeah, that
He
was
did.
fun.
Yeah, and think about it. And then people were buying. Um, uh, this is why I think people don't get it, or maybe they do and they think it's fun. But here is this public, this artwork that's freely available, and they're paying obscene amounts of money for a still shot from the the film, and they're not even, it's not even connected to Disney in any way. It's just, it's so funny to me.
Yeah, it's funny. Mickey Mouse came free, and the first thing he did was buy Bitcoin. I like the memes. It's a lot of fun. Yeah, and you also did another series, which is also very interesting, which is I think more painting like, and that is I got it over here.
Yep.
I think it was the Brutalist series.
Yeah, Brutalist Mannequins. Oh,
Yeah.
this one, oof, guts me every time I think about it.
So can you, if it not cuts too close, can you tell
No,
us?
it's fine. I put it out there. I'll happily discuss it. So when I created, again, this was another exploration in the journey of like my own mental health journey. I was sort of trying to figure out where I was in life. And I created this series of 12 paintings. These are digital paintings, more like digital collage and painting together. And I thought I was sort of depicting emotions. And it wasn't until I looked at the series a year later that I realized, let me pull up the, do I have it? Oh, please tell me I have it. I don't have it. Shoot. Okay. So it wasn't until I realized a year later that it was the story of my relationship with my ex-wife and our divorce, all 12 years. And I created 12 paintings unconsciously.
Wow.
I was in the middle of a divorce when I was doing this, and it didn't become real to me that was actually how I was expressing it. And remember, I just talked about a little bit ago, I don't really have a great emotional vocabulary, so the way in which I express my thoughts is through my work. And then I realized a year later that I had done that, through the series.
So you processed it basically unconsciously. Did you also pick the names as you sort of created them?
I
or
did,
what?
yeah. And again, another unconscious. It was definitely about like dealing with the emotions that I was feeling. So falling apart together initially wasn't, well, maybe this one specifically was her. But what happens is I typically represent myself as the female in the scenes, in the artworks. Um, and a lot of the reason that I do that is because I think I've always been more connected to my nurturing, emotional, um, feminine side of myself than I have through, my masculine. Um, and so it's very natural for me to sort of express myself in the female form. So when you see the female form in these particular artworks, I'm expressing myself in these emotions. This one is called, what's the title of this one?
Get out of my head.
Oh yeah, get out of my head. Yeah. So basically it was like here I was reacting to, like, I just wanted, there was a time where a lot of the things that, like, a lot of the, I could hear her talking to me. I
Yeah.
had a really negative view of myself at the time, and I could just hear the words she was saying in my head about me, to me, yelling at me, and I just wanted her to get out of my head.
That's interesting with relationships, especially
Yeah,
once you sort of break up with a person. It can also be your best friend, right? And then the voice of that person is literally in your head saying stuff. It takes like a year or so, or sometimes longer, to to sort of grow out of your mental system. But
it's really interesting, the narratives that we have in our own sort of, like, that build up in our own worldview, and how much is influenced by the people around us. I think so much about life is trying to figure out what is right
yeah,
for you, and like what are the actions and the values that dictate who you are, that are actually yours,
yeah,
as opposed to those that, like, came before you. Of course, that's how we learn, right?
yeah.
We learn by building on what came before us. But I think along the way, so much about life is discovering who we actually are.
It's almost like you have to externalize it first, and then you can reflect on it. But as
Yeah,
long as
it's
it's sort
actually
of
how. Sorry, go ahead.
yeah, yeah, as long as it's sort of part of yourself, you cannot really reflect on it. You have to sort of get a distance from it
Yeah,
to see it. Yeah,
it's interesting because that's sort of how we. Excuse me. But when new technology comes into our life, that's the same thing that we do. We take what we've learned before, put it on top of it, see what we, and then look at that and say, okay, what works, what doesn't work, what is real, what, in many ways, it's sort of like stress testing the new technology.
yeah,
Can it handle everything that we've learned already? And then once we've done that, right, once we've done everything we could possibly port on top of this new technology, like, there's some frustration today with people who are like, well, artists are making the same art over and over again. And really, is it just derivative of 19th century, or surrealism, or abstract, or whatever? This is a natural evolution and growth in how we use and find and build and innovate on technology. Once we've exhausted all of that, then we can begin to expand on its capabilities better, because we'll have known what works based on what we've already, you know
yeah.
put on top of it.
But it's sort of also like you have to play around with it. It's like what
Yeah,
Piaget said. Like children, they have to sort of play the game, and then as they play, the rules sort of emerge from the game. But you have to sort of
yeah,
explore the medium, or explore the thing that you're the new thing, before you can sort of yeah
yeah. One
understand
of
it.
my teachers, speaking of children and art, one of my teachers, um I guess it was high school, this guy, my one of the most influential characters in my art career. my art teacher Doug DePice, he talked about children in a sandbox, right? And the concept was, if you give a kid a shovel or you give a kid a hammer, let's say, and they're in a sandbox, they will probably dig with the hammer. They will use the hammer to stand up. They will smash things with the hammer. They might even hit other people with the hammer, but they'll find various ways to use the tool and experiment. Whereas an adult, we might see hammer and decide we can't use a hammer in a sandbox. We need a shovel, right, to dig. So like there's this sort of like playfulness of this youthful exploration in technology.
Yeah. And I think artists are very much like scouts, right? They are sort of the visionaries, the people that go out there and explore new things and try it out. That's where I think, you know, the sort of the childlike and the artist sort of meet up.
Yeah, and I love that this particular space put that element of sort of artists exploring right in the forefront of culture, because usually that happens on the back end and people are not everybody is seeing it. What NFTs and Web3 did was sort of, I like to say, raise the floor, but it allowed more people to participate in this market. And it also allowed more people to see, oh, there's all of these creators doing things. Wow. That usually happen behind the scenes.
And I think also, you know, by taking out the middleman, you basically eliminate or at least reduce the gatekeeping, like you mentioned.
Plus, of course, there are going to be gatekeepers everywhere.
Yeah, always.
Yeah, and I think that's okay. I think that you know, that's part of culture. You know, like I often say, like the sort of top of the art market didn't really change much if you look at it. The top 0.1% will always be successful. Bull or bear, doesn't matter. But again, what really happened here was the floor was raised, so more people were able to participate in the market together. That doesn't get talked about nearly enough as the dollar signs that happen up at the top.
Yeah, sort of the floodgates opened, and it was sort of like one big melting pot of all these sort of creative people meeting each other and all these cross currents mixing up. And of course, you know, that's one of the fun things with Twitter and social media in general. Like, it's very easy to communicate with each other. It's very direct, right? The collector and the artist, but also the audience and the artist. And you get direct feedback from all these people instantaneously.
Yeah.
And also, you know, you can also earn something at the same time, which is also nice, right?
Yeah. You know, what's interesting is I don't think some artists prepared for the instant feedback. I was conditioned through years of being a designer how to, like, what feedback is like, you know. I don't think that I think there are some artists out there who were not ready for the kind of feedback that they might get, and the others maybe were. I don't know, but I think it's a really interesting dynamic because social media coupled with this decentralized exchange of ideas on an open market, global open market, and you know, we still talk about the haves and the have-nots, right? Even though the opportunity is there for everybody. It's really interesting. It's a macro. I think it's a macrocosm of it's a microcosm of what's happening in the global market.
Which is also getting more decentralized, you mean, or breaking?
No, I guess I mean the interactions themselves.
Oh, in that sense, yeah. It's sort of following. Yeah, it becomes a sort of real marketplace of creative ideas and creativity. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, and I think trash art is like sort of the ultimate expression of that idea, right? Where people, the remixing.
Totally. Although it's evolved. I mean, trash art's evolved into something fantastic today.
The
It's
meaning.
expanded beyond anything I think any of us thought it could be, and it's wonderful.
It's sort of like a natural habitat for trash art, I think.
Yeah. We used to say that it's all trash art, and I think it is. Like and really the concept behind that was like it's all art. Nobody gets to tell you what is and isn't art. So if you find your audience and they like buying the same art over and over, good for you. How awesome. And if it's like low effort, glitchy art and they love it, good for you. If it's high effort art, also good for you. Like
Yeah. Let it all mix up. Let it live.
let it live.
Right.
That's right.
So let's go to your Solana project. Because, I think a lot of people are sort of anticipating that, and Solana is of course very hot at the moment. So I'm gonna pull it up right here.
Sure.
Can you tell us a little bit about the idea behind it and what this project is about?
Yeah, so the title of this piece is Soulless. And you'll see it has the same elements design wise as the Life is Gray series with this sort of like AI analysis of the image itself. And this one, it says analysis complete, file under Soulless. I had just recently written an article about how has the and I titled it something. I titled it called "Has the Art of Tomorrow Lost Its Soul?" And
Yeah.
and so this is tied directly to this piece is tied directly to that article. This exploration of the ideas AI is AI art soulless. This entire piece was created with AI intentionally. Again, lots of manipulation on the back end. It isn't just one image that I flipped in and said mid journey boop. This is like hours and hours and hours of adding and removing and like using Photoshop and still clipping out pieces. And so there's a lot of work that went into it. There's some hidden messages in here if people are can go in and look for words and messages. But what I loved about this concept was calling it soulless, was this idea that people would be spending their soul, Solana, their SOL, to buy, like they'll be selling their soul to me essentially for this soulless piece of artwork. And I thought conceptually that was pretty like a funny play on like on like art soulless, is AI art soulless?
So, well, that's an interesting question in itself. So, where do you stand on that question?
I think it could be. I called it zombie futurism, which is what I think it fits. But here's the thing: I think that sort of zombie futurism, as I coined it, is basically just using technology in art for the sake of using technology, and not really trying to push an idea forward, not really trying to evolve or grow or experiment, right? It's sort of like using generative art just to create generative art, right? Which is okay, and that's my point. My point is that zombie futurism has its own unique quality about it. So I'm fine with it. If somebody can sell art that is quote unquote soulless, good on you. Like, and if people want to collect it, good on you. Like, I think that it has its own unique quality.
Yeah.
But I do think it can be soulless, and that's like its own quality.
So do you think AI can develop a soul?
No. You mean like AGI? Like if we go into like
For example.
that realm? No, of course not. I think we're so far. Look, I think we overestimate our ability to develop technology in the short term and underestimate its impact in the long term. So for me, I think we're so far away from AGI. I think here's my other issue with this, and this is probably not something we should dive into here. But basically, it's like OpenAI has changed the definition of AGI in order to fit its new model. But AGI is always meant sort of like an intelligence that can an artificial intelligence that can do and think and be without human interaction. Well, they changed the definition to mean something that's reachable. So in my opinion, is true AGI possible? We're not even freaking close. But I do think we underestimate the impact of these AI products and capabilities that we're using today on the future, for sure.
So what do you make of Sora, the latest OpenAI?
I haven't played with it yet, so I don't know. Who is? Oh, is that? Was that Microsoft's?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. So I haven't. I did play with it. It's okay. I mean, most of these are just packaged user interfaces. So they're not really like. I don't think they're advancing anything in particular. The advancement for me was what OpenAI did with ChatGPT. That was groundbreaking, and now we're seeing more packaged versions for a general consumer base. Like that's what Bard or whatever they want to call it now, or Sora or whatever. That's what these are becoming. You know, I think it'll do basic capabilities that the general public, the retail user will find, beneficial. Though what I think what's going to happen is they're going to have to be trained on how to
Yeah.
use it.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. And do you have like a favorite AI?
I use ChatGPT for so much. And what I love about ChatGPT, like for text-based chat, I use ChatGPT. But I explore it probably in ways other people don't. So recently, I took my resume, my Myers Briggs output, my Enneagram outputs, any personality tests that I took, my content that I wrote, and I started to like just throw it into ChatGPT and ask it to analyze it, and then after months and months of conversations back and forth in one sort of chat, I asked it to output like top 5 careers I should avoid, and then top 5 careers I should
Yeah.
explore.
Yeah.
And of course, the ones that told me to avoid were exactly the ones I've always avoided for exactly the reasons that I avoided them. Some of it was like high, uh, I forget what it was about sales, but it was specifically like commission based sales.
Mm.
High commission based high sales. Like I avoided that. That's just not my bag. I'm an
Yeah.
introvert. I'm not. I'm a learned extrovert. Like it's learned extroversion, but I'm a natural introvert. Sales is not for me. But it told me I should focus more on design, which I did in my career. I should focus more on then it threw some interesting ones at me. Art therapy, it threw at
Oh.
me, and I was like, huh, okay, maybe I could have done that. It's not something I'm interested, but you know, it did throw some interesting ones at me. I thought that was a good use of it.
Do you think at some point that AI knows us better than we ourselves, or?
It's a great question. Does it know us better?
Yeah. Okay. True. That's
Um, can it analyze information we feed it better than we can? Probably,
yeah.
right? Because it just has access to all of it. But
The
does it
sheer
know
amount.
us? I don't know. Like I'm always cautious about how we use like uh, anthropomorphic language
Yeah.
about AI because it's easy for us to say, does it know us? I mean, it knows how to analyze whatever we give it access to.
Yeah.
But it does there's no emotion behind it. There's no intention behind it.
What do you think about Ben Goertzel and his sort of views on AI?
Oh, is that the dude who sort of had he was a researcher, and then he had this
Yeah,
sort of
I
come to
think it's
Jesus
connected.
moment about how he thought how we were moving more towards AGI, and he was afraid and like scared for our culture. Is that guy?
Uh, I'm not sure if he. I think he was pretty positive about AI, actually, about the future of AI. But he's sort of talking in favor of decentralizing AI, and he thinks it's sort of also the natural course of AI. And I believe
Oh.
he's connected to Singularity Net, but I'm not sure about that.
Oh, maybe we're talking about two different people then.
But yeah, but you also had a lot of people, sort of founders of AI, who sort of came out warning about
I
the
mean,
end of the world and that kind of stuff.
there are going to be bad actors.
Yeah,
We can't avoid bad actors.
yeah,
You know,
yeah,
it's in not to make it political, but it's like if we think about gun control as opposed, like let's say guns are technology,
yeah,
right? People who want to get a gun illegally will get it regardless of whether you're controlling it for the general public. People will use technology as a bad actor regardless of the guardrails
yeah.
what you put in legislatively or you put in regulatorily. You know, there are just going to be bad actors out there, and we have to recognize that, and of course, prosecute them the way they should be prosecuted, and you know, but
Yeah, and
don't vilify a technology just because there might be some bad actors.
that's how you use it, right? And I think there's also this. I'm not sure if I haven't really looked into it, but I somewhere read that statistic that that with guns, for example, the places where there's no guns are very safe, and the places where everyone has a gun are also very safe. It's those places in the middle where some people have guns and others don't. Those are the dangerous places. And that makes a lot of sense, right? Because if everyone carries, and they probably also know how to use them, and not to use them, since everybody's carrying, so that makes a lot of sense. And it's also with rich and poor countries, right? If everybody's
Hmm.
poor, it's pretty, a mild, pleasant country. If everybody's rich, it's also a nice, pleasant country. But if you have like a big divergence between rich and poor, that's where things get
Yeah, it's where the
messy.
tension is.
Yeah, and
Yep.
especially if that goes too far. Yeah, so that makes a
Yeah.
lot of sense.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
don't have the gun numbers in front of me. I don't want. I'm always cautious about going political because I'm not. I
yeah,
used to be a political artist, but I'm not anymore. Uh,
yeah. And guns are like a really very, what you call
yeah,
it, third rail kind of topic, right?
yeah. It's a it's. I used to do political art about Trump, and like I learned later, looking back at it, how naive I was about using some of the imagery I used um, in my political art with Trump, and I look back at it as like a lesson learned. But I'm not. It's not that I'm not proud of the work. The work is the work.
Yeah,
But I'm not proud of how naive I was about using some of the ideas, because so basically what I did was I used a lot of like Nazi symbolism, and tied it to Trump before, because of his rhetoric and because of what sort of like visions in my head, like what it could have been in the worst case scenario. But
yeah,
the fact of the matter is, while Trump is a really divisive, a really vocal, really loud um, person, he is not he is not Hitler in
no,
in
well,
the
thank
in
God.
the and
Yeah,
we should save, and I don't remember where I heard this, but this is what really struck for me was, if I'm going to use images of Nazi symbolism in my art to express this idea, it should be saved for the person who is really embodying that. And that's when I look at myself and I say, "Ooh, maybe I need to do better as an
yeah,
artist." And that's why I avoid political art, because I'm a little bit of ashamed of my own creation, so to speak.
Yeah, and sometimes it can also sort of make matters worse, right? Because you're sort of adding to the polarization,
Yeah,
instead of bringing people together, right? So that's
yeah. I mean, I don't use my art to bring people together, because that's just not what it is for me. My art is more about like I create it because I want people who look at it to feel something about themselves, about me. But it's for me, it's all about this one-on-one connection.
yeah.
There are other people out there who create art to bring people together, and that's wonderful, but that's definitely not me.
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
But I think that's the, I think that's the real sort of aim of art, to sort of explore yourself, like to give
yeah,
expression to yourself in your full being, sort of expressing itself. So let's end on that very positive note.
yes,
I really like your art, and I loved sort of exploring all your different pieces and different ways that you express yourself in art. I advise everybody to check out the Solus collection, or in this case, piece. But it's a project with, I think, 3 other artists, right?
I think there are 5.
Oh, 5. Okay. Well, we're probably going to get them all on the show. So I'm working on that. Yeah, I want to thank you for being on Bitcoin Live.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a great conversation.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. And to everybody everywhere, start following Eric P. Rhodes if you haven't yet, or us if you haven't yet. And we hope to see you soon. And with that, we're going to end the show. Take care.